Hare Krishna. So today is our last session of the year. Hare Krishna. So just admitting everyone. Very well. Something not quiet. Let's start again. Hare Krishna. I guess it's going live. I got the messages might not be, but I think it is. Hare Bol. So I hope the sharing is in place. So as I was saying that today we will have the last session of the year. Then I will be away for a couple of weeks, and then we will resume back on 7th. So the very first Saturday we will resume back there. The next 2 Saturdays will be away. I will send the message in the group as well. So for everyone who might not be here today, we'll have the message. Let's start the session. Shri Īśopaniṣad, which is the direct knowledge about the Lord, Ishwar. And this is coming from Srila Prabhupada. Let's do a bit of Mangala Charan, taking the blessings of the Acharyas and the whole Guru Shishya Parampara. Om. Ajnanaatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuda Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhavitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Parmami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashat Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gurudev Maharaj ki jai, Jai Jai Shri Radhe Shyam. Hare Krishna. Welcome one and all. Hare Krishna. सभी भक्तों का स्वागत है. हम श्री ईशोपनिषद में 18 वर्सेस हैं और हम 8th वर्स को आज कंक्लूड करने की कोशिश करेंगे. Or maybe in couple of weeks back when we will resume back, then maybe we will revise and then we will move on from following week from verse 9, because this whole section finishes at 8 and then we will start a new section in 9. And it's very important to revise because the Shastras goes again and again on the same point. So not only that we know it, but we realize it. That's very important. कि हमको सिर्फ शास्त्रों का ज्ञान ही होना जरूरी नहीं है, शास्त्रों के ज्ञान को हम अपने जीवन में उतार पाएं, उसके लिए सेम पॉइंट अलग अलग पर्सपेक्टिव से, अलग अलग पास टाइम से, अलग अलग भक्तों के माध्यम से हम बार बार सुनते हैं और शास्त्र बार बार हमारे सामने वो प्रस्तुत करते हैं. So invocation mantra, Om Purnamada Purnamidam. The Lord is complete and we are part and parcel of Lord, and we are complete as well. Complete in a sense, we are same as Lord in quality. The Lord is, absolute truth is Satya Chit Ananda, and we are Satya Chit Ananda. We don't need anything from outside to be happy. When we try to, that happiness is very temporary happiness. But when we have the bliss flowing from inside, then we don't really rely on our happiness on the outside things. जब हमको अपने अंदर से ही आनंद आता है, और अपने अंदर से क्यों? क्योंकि हमारे ही अंदर हम आत्मा हैं, इस चीज का जब हमको बोध होता है, रियलाइजेशन होता है, तो उसको हम पहला लेवल कहते हैं. रियलाइजेशंस के अंदर वो ब्रह्मन रियलाइजेशन है. ब्रह्मन, जो ब्रह्मन वर्ड उपनिषदों में बार बार आता है कि हम आत्मा हैं, आत्मा को ही हम ब्रह्मन कहते हैं. इस प्रिंसिपल को कि हम ये बॉडी नहीं है, ये बॉडी एक दिन पैदा हुई है, एक दिन खत्म हो जाएगी, लेकिन इसमें जो आत्मा है वो पहले भी थी, अब भी है और हमेशा रहेगी. इसलिए जब हमको उस चीज का बोध हो जाता है कि उस आत्मा को कभी कुछ नहीं होता, इस शरीर को बहुत कुछ हो सकता है और होता है, कुछ अगर ना भी हो तो एजिंग होती है. हम बच्चे हैं, सब भगवद गीता में वर्स आता है, ना हन्यते हन्य माने शरीरे. तो शरीर, the body grows old from infant to a child to a young body to an old age and then die, and then the cycle starts again for the body, but the soul remains the same. So आत्मा शरीर के अंदर जो है वो हमेशा सेम बनी रहती है, चाहे वो एक 2 साल के बच्चे के अंदर हो या 100 साल के बुजुर्ग के अंदर हो, आत्मा सेम होती है. सिर्फ हमको उसका रियलाइजेशन होना चाहिए. अब ये हमको रियलाइजेशन होना चाहिए, तो वो रियलाइजेशन किसको होता है, इसके ऊपर बहुत हमारे उपनिषदों के अंदर वर्णन है. So who is the one who realizes that we are body or we are soul? Who misidentify ourselves as the body, not the soul? So who is that one? कौन है वो जो कि हमारे शरीर से अटैच हो गया है, और इसलिए शरीर के ऊपर जो भी, शरीर इस तरीके से कहा गया है जैसे कि सर्दी गर्मी मौसम आते हैं और बदल जाते हैं. कोई भी मौसम कहीं पर भी परमानेंट नहीं होता. जहां हम ट्रॉपिकल एनवायरनमेंट भी कहते हैं, वहां पे भी थोड़ा सा अंतर जरूर आता है. हाँ, डाइवर्स नहीं होगा, जिस तरीके से हम यूके में कह सकते हैं कि 30 तक टेम्परेचर पहुंच जाएगा गर्मियों में, और अब जो सर्दियां चल रही हैं इसके अंदर माइनस में टेम्परेचर चला जाएगा. लेकिन ट्रॉपिकल में फिर भी रेंज 20 to 25 के बीच में हो सकता है, 25 to 30 के, लेकिन डिफरेंस जरूर आता है और बदलता जरूर है. वो चेंज हमारे शरीर में जरूर आएगा, हम जितना मर्जी चाहें रोकना, लेकिन हमारी आत्मा में वो परिवर्तन नहीं आता. क्यों? क्योंकि आत्मा सत्य चित्त आनंद है. And there's a very nice story to go along. There was a sage, and the guru of the sage comes around, and the sage had the accident. Apart from the face, everything was broken. All the bones were broken, and the whole body was bandaged. And the sage was there, the disciple was there, and when the guru comes, guru says, I'm feeling really sorry for you that you had that miserable accident, and I'm sure it must be paining a lot. And the disciple said that it's okay, it doesn't pain that much, but yes, when I laugh, then it pains a lot. And the guru thought, what? The whole body is broken into bits, and you're saying when you laugh, Do you find any moment in your day which makes you laugh? And the disciple says, of course, because this is the body. Inside the body, who is me, that's still intact. Nothing has happened to that person. The same example, so हमारे हिंदी भाषी भक्तों के लिए एक भक्त जिसका एक्सीडेंट हो गया, पूरे शरीर के अंदर सभी हड्डियां टूट गईं, सिर्फ फेस बचा है और पूरे शरीर को बैंडेज से लपेटा गया है और हॉस्पिटल के अंदर वो वेट कर रहे हैं कि कब वो रिकवर होंगे और बहुत समय लगेगा। उनके गुरु आते हैं उनसे मिलने के लिए और आंखों में आंसू लाके वो कहते हैं कि बहुत दुख की बात है कि आपके साथ में ये एक्सीडेंट हुआ और हम समझ सकते हैं कि आपको बहुत दर्द हो रहा होगा। तो शिष्य ने कहा, जो बेड पे लेटे हुए हैं हॉस्पिटल में, कि दर्द तो बहुत होता है, लेकिन सबसे ज़्यादा दर्द तब होता है जब मुझे हँसी आती है, क्योंकि हँसी आती है तो शरीर हिलता है, तो फिर हड्डियाँ हिलने की कोशिश करती हैं जो टूटी हुई हैं, तो बहुत दर्द होता है। तो इस पे गुरु को बहुत आश्चर्य हुआ कि इतना दर्द, इतना शरीर टूटा हुआ, क्या उसके बाद भी आपके पूरे दिन में ऐसे कुछ क्षण आते हैं जो आपको हँसी आती है? वो कहते हैं ज़रूर, क्योंकि शरीर टूटा है, शरीर के परे जो मैं हूँ, जो मेरी आत्मा है, वो तो सत्यचित आनंद है ही, उसको तो हँसी आ सकती है। बस वो जब हँसती है, मैं जब हँसता हूँ, तो मेरे से जो अटैच ये शरीर है ये हिलता है, और जब ये हिलता है तो मुझको बहुत पीड़ा होती है, लेकिन अदरवाइज एवरीथिंग इज ओके। Similarly, the example comes for Ramakrishna Paramahansa, who was the spiritual master of Vivekananda, where he had throat cancer, and I think he died from it. Well, during his last stages, because of throat cancer, it was reached to the advanced age. It was very painful, very, very painful. And somebody came to him and somebody said to him that, so somebody asked that it must be paining, because he had many disciples who were doctors as well. They said, I can understand, it's at advanced stage, it must be paining. And he said, yes, it's paining. It pains a lot. And then because that doctor disciple was a disciple of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, he said, but still I can see somebody there behind it who is not affected by it. And then Ramakrishna Paramahansa laughed, and he said, you managed to see that person, and you are so right, that soul, that Atma who is behind it, that's a still peaceful Satta Chitta Ananda. तो रामकृष्ण परमहंस जी, जो कि बंगाली थे, जो स्वामी विवेकानंद जी के गुरु थे, उनको लास्ट स्टेज में जब थ्रोट कैंसर बहुत एडवांस स्टेज में पहुंच गया था, तब उन्होंने, उनके एक शिष्य जो कि डॉक्टर थे, जिनको मालूम था इस एडवांस स्टेज में पहुंचने के बाद उनके पेशेंट्स को कितना दर्द होता है, तब जब उन्होंने अपने गुरु को कहा कि आपको बहुत दर्द हो रहा होगा, तो रामकृष्ण परमहंस जी ने बिल्कुल इस चीज़ को एक्सेप्ट किया कि बहुत दर्द होता है। लेकिन बाद में जब उनके शिष्य जो कि डॉक्टर थे, उन्होंने कहा, लेकिन फिर भी मुझको ऐसा लगता है कि आपको दर्द होता है, लेकिन आपको कोई दुःख नहीं है, आप अभी भी खुश लग रहे हैं, आप इस शरीर के परे हैं। तब उन्होंने वो हँसे और उन्होंने इस चीज़ को एक्सेप्ट किया कि बिल्कुल सही, इस शरीर से मुझको बहुत दर्द होता है, लेकिन दुःख की कोई बात नहीं है, क्योंकि मेरे पीछे शरीर के परे जो आत्मा है, जो मैं हूँ, वो अभी भी सत्यचित आनंद है। और उसके ऊपर उन्होंने, ये एक पास टाइम है उनका। और इसी तरीके से हम बहुत सारे वैष्णव्स जो रहे हैं मूवमेंट के अंदर, उनको भी देख सकते हैं, जो लास्ट स्टेजेस में जब उनकी बॉडी बहुत बहुत जर्जर हो गई है, हिज होलीनेस स्वामी जयपताका स्वामी जी महाराज, उनके शरीर के बहुत सारे, कई सालों से उनके ऑपरेशंस हो रहे हैं, और अभी भी वो प्रचार कार्य में बहुत ज़्यादा लगे हुए हैं, अभी भी वो हर चीज़ के अंदर हैं। तो जब कोई उनसे पूछता है तो वो यही कहते हैं कि शरीर ज़रूर मुझको रिस्ट्रिक्ट करता है, लेकिन क्योंकि शरीर के पीछे जो आत्मा है अभी भी वो ड्राइवर है, तो इस शरीर को मैं चला पा रहा हूँ। और वो आत्मा मेरी अभी भी कृष्ण प्रिय, कृष्ण भावना, कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस है। तो इस वजह से मुझे कोई दुख दर्द नहीं है कि मेरा शरीर मेरे को कोई रुकावट डालता हो। क्योंकि क्वेश्चन ये था डिसाइपल्स का कि अब ये शरीर की जो हालत है, इससे तो आप प्रचार कार्य नहीं कर पाएंगे। तो हम भक्तों को इससे सीखने को बहुत मिलता है कि ओम पूर्णमदा पूर्णमिदम, ये आत्मा के लिए कहा गया है, ये शरीर के लिए नहीं कहा गया है। हमारा शरीर कभी पूर्ण नहीं रहेगा, हमको चश्मा लग सकता है, हमारे कान में दिक्कत हो सकती है, हमारे बाल उड़ जाएंगे, दांत गिर जाएंगे, शरीर धीरे धीरे जर्जर हो जाएगा। शरीर पूर्ण नहीं है, लेकिन ओम पूर्णमदा पूर्णमिदम पूर्णमुदच्यते, जो भगवान से निकला है वो शरीर नहीं निकला, वो आत्मा निकली है। और वो आत्मा के जो गुण हैं सत्य चित्त आनंद, वो पूर्ण है भगवान ही की तरह। ईशावास्य प्रिंसिपल जो हमने वर्स 1 के अंदर देखा, और अगर हम उस हार्मनी में रहेंगे जो हमारा पूरा कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस का ऑब्जेक्टिव है, तो फिर हम अच्छे से रह पाएंगे। अगर नहीं रहेंगे तो हमें बहुत दुख होगा, इस वजह से हमें रहना चाहिए। तो यहाँ पे हम इस तरीके से समझ सकते हैं, अगर कुछ लोग ऐसा भी कहें कि नहीं, हमको वो हार्मनी चाहिए ही नहीं, हमें वो स्पिरिचुअल हार्मनी चाहिए ही नहीं, हमको नहीं रहना कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस के अंदर, हम जैसे हैं वैसे ही खुश हैं। इसलिए मंत्र 3 है कि अगर कृष्णा भावनामृत जो स्पिरिचुअल हमारे ग्रंथ हैं, वो जो हमें बताते हैं कि इस तरीके से रहो, आप स्पिरिचुअल फाउंडेशन बनाओ, अगर वो फाउंडेशन नहीं रहेगी तो मंत्रा 3 के अंदर, तो फिर बहुत दुख होगा, आप अपने आप को हार्म करेंगे, जो आजकल हम कर रहे हैं। सस्टेनेबिलिटी, चाहे हम प्लैनेट की बात करें, चाहे हम और बहुत इनइक्वालिटीज की बात होती हैं। अगर हम अपने ग्रंथों के अंदर जाएं तो हम सब देखते हैं कि ग्रंथों को फॉलो करने के बाद ये सारी की सारी दिक्कतें जो सोसाइटी में हैं, ये खत्म हो जाती हैं। और ये दिक्कतें पहले जब वैदिक कल्चर में, जैसे भगवान राम के टाइम पे हम देखते हैं, राम राज्य हम कहा करते थे, तो उस टाइम पे ये चीजें नहीं थी। हाँ, जब राम राज्य जा रहा था तो, या जैसे परीक्षित महाराज हैं उनके टाइम पे नहीं थी, लेकिन जब परीक्षित महाराज जा रहे थे, कलयुग आ रहा था, तब धीरे धीरे डेवलप हो रही थी। अम्बरीश महाराज के टाइम पे, जब अम्बरीश महाराज राजा थे, तब ये दिक्कतें नहीं थी। जब वो जा रहे थे और दूसरा काल शुरू हो रहा था, तब धीरे धीरे दिक्कतें, क्योंकि ये ट्रांजिशन होता है एक बीच। सो वी नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट देयर इज नो अदर ऑल्टरनेटिव. We got to live with the harmony of the Lord if we would like to be happy. If we will live, if we will ignore that harmony, then it will be disharmony, and that disharmony will harm us. So there is no in between. Either we live with harmony or we will live with disharmony. Of course, what could happen, that we have 24 hours in a day, maybe 10 hours we are in harmony with Krishna consciousness. Whatever we do, we keep Krishna in our mind, but maybe sometimes we fall into material sense gratification, and that could happen. But the process of Krishna consciousness is that slowly, gradually, that 10 hours will become 24 hours, and rest of 14 hours will, from material, transform into spiritual. So this is the whole process. So we don't need to compare with anyone that how much in a day we live compared to someone else. But yes, we can inspire from others, like our acharyas, that how they lived their life. And most of them, many of them, they were householders just like us. Bhakti Vinod Thakur ji, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ji, especially his father, Bhakti Vinod Thakur ji, he was a classic example. And maybe his appearance, disappearance time, we'll discuss a lot more about him. Then this is where we are in the segment 4 to 8, that Ishwar could only be understood by spiritual vision. And our Shastras, they give it the spiritual vision. Shastras, what are the Shastras? The question was raised in the past. So if we are Hindus, then we need to understand that Vedas are our Shastras. But I always keep the dialogue open. Even if somebody from any other scripture, any other holy scripture from any other major religion would like to include anything because it says there, then we can also discuss that as well, because the base for the humanity has to be the same. तो हम कभी भी इस तरीके से नहीं कहेंगे कि क्योंकि ये हमारे धर्म में है तो सही है और किसी और के धर्म में है तो सही नहीं है। हमको हमेशा डिस्कशन करना चाहिए कि ऐसा नहीं हो सकता, क्योंकि दूसरे धर्म के लोग भी जो हैं वो काफी ऐसे हैं जो कि पीसफुल हैं, और हमारे धर्म में भी ऐसे काफी लोग हैं जो कि फॉलो कर रहे हैं लेकिन फिर भी पीसफुल नहीं है। तो हमको हमेशा अपने आप को जज करते रहना चाहिए और हमेशा हमको एक ओपन माइंड रखना चाहिए दूसरों के लिए भी, क्योंकि वेदास जो हैं वो कभी भी ऐसा नहीं कहा गया कि हिंदुइज्म के लिए है और कभी भी ऐसा नहीं कहा गया कि वो सिर्फ भारतवर्ष के लिए है। इवन दो पुराने टाइम में भारतवर्ष पूरा, जैसे हम भारत खंड कहा करते थे भारत महाराज के टाइम पे, वो उस टाइम पे पूरा का पूरा जो जिसे हम प्लैनेट अर्थ कहते हैं वो भारत खंड का एक पार्ट होता था। तो इसके अंदर हमने वेदों से एक श्लोक भी देखा था किस तरीके से, फिर हम उसको फिर कभी दोबारा देखेंगे। सो ईश्वर इज इनकंसीवेबल टू अवर नॉर्मल इंटेलिजेंस। सब हमें समझना चाहिए कि हमारी जो भौतिक इंद्रियां हैं उससे भगवान को समझ पाना मुश्किल है। स्पिरिचुअल विजन जब डेवलप होगा तो सबसे पहले हम भगवान को हर परिस्थिति में, थिंग्स, इवेंट्स, पीपल, हर इंसान में देख पाएंगे, हर इंसान में देख पाएंगे, हर धर्म के इंसान में देख पाएंगे। लेकिन अगेन जरूरी नहीं है, अगर हम कम से कम ऐसा नहीं तो हम अपने फैमिली मेंबर्स में देख सकते हैं भगवान को। हम ऐसा समझ सकते हैं कि हमारे घर में जो हमारे पार्टनर हैं, हस्बैंड हैं, वाइफ हैं, वो और हम दोनों साथ में मिलके किस तरीके से भगवान की भक्ति करें। हमारे जो बच्चे हैं हम उनको किस तरीके से भक्त बनाएं, किस तरीके से अच्छा नागरिक बनाएं। और अगर भगवत गीता पढ़ेंगे, भगवत गीता के अंदर चैप्टर 16 के अंदर जो 26 गुण दिए गए हैं, वो 26 गुण सिर्फ भक्ति ही नहीं बनाएंगे, एक अच्छा सन, एक अच्छी डॉटर, एक अच्छा हस्बैंड, एक अच्छी वाइफ, एक अच्छा सिटीजन, एक अच्छा नेशनल, हम एक अच्छा स्टूडेंट, जिस भी प्रकार से हम सोचें एक अच्छा मनुष्य बनाने में हेल्प होगी। और इसलिए भगवत गीता को कोई भी पढ़ सकता है और बहुत ही लोगों ने पढ़े हैं, जैसे कि डॉक्टर वेन डायर्स का एग्जाम्पल देते हैं जो अब नहीं रहे। उन्होंने भगवत गीता का अध्ययन किया था और वो हिंदू नहीं थे, लेकिन फिर भी उन्होंने भगवत गीता का अध्ययन करके बहुत, और ऐसे ही बहुत ज़्यादा लोग हैं। अगर हम भक्ति वेदांत टेम्पल में जाते हैं तो वहाँ पे एक छोटा सा वेजिटेरियन पोस्टर लगा हुआ है और बहुत सारे जो फेमस लोग रहे हैं वो वेजिटेरियन रहे हैं और किस तरीके से उन्होंने भगवत गीता के रेफरेंसेस दिए हैं उसका भी वहाँ पे छोटा सा पोस्टर है। So we could get inspired by them as well, that it's not very restricted for us. We are not just doing it because we just managed to get birth in Hindu family and that's the reason this is the only thing we need to do. No, we need to understand, because when we will understand, then only our kids will understand, our friends will understand, our colleagues will understand, our neighbors, the people who interact with us will understand. So if we do yoga, people will ask us, what do you do? And anybody could do yoga. Very similar thing here. If people will say that we are polite, we are always happy, they will definitely ask what kind of practices you follow. And then we can say we follow these kind of spiritual practices, and this is Bhagavad Gita we read. And we had Diwali function in the office, and then one of the senior VP who came to light the lamp, I gifted Bhagavad Gita to him, and I didn't get the chance to speak to him later whether he got the chance to read it or not. But if we need to exchange gifts, we could exchange spiritual gifts, something like Bhagavad Gita. And there are many more, many books written by Srila Prabhupada which we could share. So verse 8 is that this vision, so which vision? The spiritual vision which will make us equino. So every situation is the same for us. And now sometimes people will say, oh, it's the same for everyone. It's like we are not going to get happy, we are not going to get sad. Well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. But we will always be blissful, right? Because we know the bliss is inside. It's like if we have £1 million and if somebody will give us £10, is there any reason to be happy? Well, we got £10 extra, but we already have 1 million. And let's say if £10 we lose it somewhere, are we going to get upset because of it? So it's all relative. But of course, if we only have £10 or if we only have £50 and we lose £10, then it's like 20%. It's 1/5, £10 or 50%. Then we will get upset. It's the same amount, but depends on what do we have. Now, because we are Satchitananda, we are eternal conscious bliss. If we can realize that, compared to that, everything else is negligible. Not that we will not experience happiness or sadness, but it's negligible compared to what we already are. And this is the point where we say that we are equiposed. Not that when the family member will go, we will not be upset, we will not be sad. But that will be negligible compared to what we already have, because we have seen the person is the body. And we know it actually makes our relationship even more cherishable, because we always remember that the person is going to leave us at some point. We will not take the person for granted. And that's the spiritual vision. We will live every moment. And another book by a Buddhist, Power of Now. So these verses, they are teaching us the power of now. But we will live in present and we will live very blissful. So जिस तरीके से हम देखें, spiritual vision, वो आध्यात्मिक जो हम ज्ञान के चक्षु हम हमारे स्क्रिप्चर्स वर्स कहते हैं, वो हम जब आध्यात्मिक विजन, आध्यात्मिक नजर हमको आएगी, उस नजर से जब हम सब देखेंगे सारी चीजें, सारे इवेंट्स जो सर्कमस्टेंसेस हमारे आसपास होते हैं, जितने लोग हमारे आसपास होते हैं, हम सबको एक जैसे देख पाएंगे. फिर हमारी किसी से अटैचमेंट नहीं होगी, हमारी किसी से डिटैचमेंट नहीं होगी, और हम कृष्णा कॉन्शियस में सबसे बहुत अच्छे से, बहुत प्रेम से उनके साथ में रह पाएंगे. और दिस विजन डेवलप फर्दर एंड डायरेक्टेड टू द ईश्वर. जब हम सभी से प्रेम से बात कर पाएंगे, तब हम देख पाएंगे कि सभी भगवान का रूप है. और वही ये वर्स बताता है, वर्स मंत्र 8, such a person must factually know. So it's not it's not a borrowed knowledge. Factually we will know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, Ishwar, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. So we understand that is Krishna, is the Lord, is the Ishwar who has been giving all these things to us. So that's the reason we need to be very happy. So हम समझते हैं कि वो भगवान कौन है, वो ईश्वर कौन है, और वो ईश्वर जो है वो अनएम्बॉडीड की हमने बात करी थी कि भगवान की कोई बॉडी नहीं है, विदाउट वेन्स. भगवान की ऐसे नस नाड़ियां नहीं हैं जिस तरीके से हमारी हैं, क्योंकि भगवान का जो शरीर है वो शरीर आध्यात्मिक है, भौतिक नहीं है जिस तरीके से हमारा है. हमारी आत्मा आध्यात्मिक है, हमारा शरीर भौतिक है. लेकिन जब भगवान अवतार लेकर आते हैं, भगवान खुद आते हैं, तो भगवान का जो शरीर होता है वो भी आध्यात्मिक होता है. भगवान अपने आध्यात्मिक शरीर के साथ आते हैं और अपने आध्यात्मिक शरीर के साथ जाते हैं. तो भगवान के अंदर जो कोई नस नाड़ियां, कोई ब्लड और कोई शरीर ऐसा नहीं है कि वो शरीर लेते हैं और शरीर छोड़ते हैं. वो उसी शरीर के साथ आते हैं, उसी शरीर के साथ जाते हैं. भगवान ओमनीपोटेंट हैं, भगवान सब कुछ कर सकते हैं. फुलफिलर ऑफ डिजायर्स, भगवान ही हैं जो सब कुछ कर सकते हैं, उनके अलावा और कोई नहीं है. सुप्रीम, भगवान से ऊपर कोई भी नहीं. सेल्फ सफिशिएंट, भगवान किसी के ऊपर डिपेंडेंट नहीं है, किसी के भी ऊपर. एंटीसेप्टिक एंड प्रोप्लेक्टिक, these two words we will see. ये दो वर्ड्स हम और देखेंगे डिटेल के अंदर. ये प्रभु जी ने बहुत अच्छे से समझाए हैं. पर शुद्धम एंड विद्धम, so apapa vidhum. So these two are the words coming from, so all these are Sanskrit words coming from the verse, and these are the English meaning of them. So these are the qualities about Ishwar. So how is our Lord? These are the qualities, that this is how our God is. And then we did discuss about postulation, where we said that two statements, apparent contradicting statements, but when we have the third statement, then we understand these two statements, and that's why we need the guru and acharya. तो हमने ये देखा कि हम अर्थपति जो स्टेटमेंट्स होती हैं, वो ऐसी स्टेटमेंट्स होती हैं जो कि दो स्टेटमेंट जो कि हमें लगता है कि दोनों सच नहीं हो सकती. जैसे कि कहा कि रवि दिन में खाना नहीं खाता, लेकिन रवि का फिर भी वेट बढ़ रहा है. अगर रवि दिन में खाना नहीं खाता तो रवि का वेट कैसे बढ़ रहा है? ये दोनों चीजें सच नहीं हो सकती। लेकिन तब हम ये समझ सकते हैं ये दोनों स्टेटमेंट सच कैसे हो सकती हैं, जब हम तीसरी स्टेटमेंट देखते हैं जिसे हम अर्थपत्ति कहते हैं, जो कि कंक्लूडिंग स्टेटमेंट होती है। उस स्टेटमेंट का मतलब है कि रवि रात को खाना खाता है। अगर रवि रात को खाना खाता है तो हम समझ सकते हैं अच्छा इसलिए रवि का वेट बढ़ता है और रवि दिन में खाना नहीं खाता। ठीक है, अब हम समझ सकते हैं दोनों स्टेटमेंट तो ट्रू हो सकती हैं, लेकिन अर्थपति स्टेटमेंट ना हो तो हमें ये पता नहीं लगेगा कि ये दो स्टेटमेंट सही कैसे हो सकते हैं। तो ये जो तीसरी स्टेटमेंट होती है ये हमको हमारे गुरु, हमारे आचार्य, सीनियर वैष्णव, हमारे शास्त्र ये अच्छे से बता पाते हैं, क्योंकि हमारी नॉलेज, हमारी अंडरस्टैंडिंग, हमारी रियलाइजेशन बहुत सूक्ष्म होती है, उनकी रियलाइजेशन बहुत बड़ी होती है। So our realization is very limited, but our superiors, our senior Vaishnavas, Acharyas, Siksha Guru, Diksha Guru, scriptures, the understanding, the purpose of the scriptures, they all are very important to get this Arthapati, that concluding statement. That's why if you open the Bhagavad Gita from anywhere and just take one verse and try to interpret that, it will be very hard for us. Until unless, of course, we have already read the whole Bhagavad Gita, we have understood, digested, then we can pick the verse from anywhere and we know the context already. So similarly, because our acharyas, they have done it all, they can tell us how these two contradictory statements. That's why we need someone with us all the time, right? This is the power of association. So जिस तरीके से हम समझ सकते हैं कि ये दो स्टेटमेंट के लिए थर्ड स्टेटमेंट वही दे सकता है जिसको सब पता है। जैसे कि हाथी का हमने एग्जाम्पल लिया, अगर कोई जन्म से अंधा है और उसको हाथी की बॉडी को टच करने को दिया जाए, हाथी इतना बड़ा है कि हो सकता है एक बार में बॉडी पार्ट एक ही टच हो पाए, हो सकता है कोई पूंछ को ही टच करे और बाहर आके कहेगा हाथी में तो ऐसे बाल हैं, हाथी तो बड़ा छोटा सा, बड़ी पतली सी चीज है। लेकिन जिसने पूरे हाथी को देख रखा होगा वो बता सकता है कि वो हाथी की पूंछ को आपने टच किया होगा, हाथी ऐसा नहीं है। तो इसी तरीके से हमारे रियलाइजेशन जो हैं वो थोड़े से लिमिटेड हो सकते हैं। तो इसलिए हम अपने भौतिक इंद्रियों पे बहुत ज्यादा विश्वास नहीं कर सकते, हमको अध्यात्म की जरूरत पड़ती है। इसी तरीके से हमने देखा कि कहीं पे लिखा है कि गॉड हैज नो फॉर्म, कहीं पे लिखा है गॉड हैज मेनी फॉर्म्स, कि भगवान के बहुत सारे रूप हैं, आरूप्य है, भगवान के रूप नहीं है आरूप्य है, भगवान के बहुत सारे रूप हैं, उरूप्य है, बहुत बहुत सारे रूप हैं। तो अर्थपत्ति से हम समझते हैं कि भगवान के मटीरियल रूप कोई नहीं है, आध्यात्मिक रूप बहुत है, पर भौतिक रूप भगवान का कोई नहीं है। तो इस तरीके से हम पोस्टुलेशन करके अर्थपति स्टेटमेंट से ये समझ सकते हैं। और this is not one place, this has been given many places. So we have seen this in mantra 5, God Ishwar has no eyes but he sees. Well, he doesn't have eyes, how can he see? Because he has spiritual eyes, right? So we need to understand that. Kayam, so kaya is the form, is negating, so unembodied. Srila Prabhupada ji, SP Srila Prabhupada ji has given this word, this translation, unembodied. Now somebody else who might not have Arthapati might translate Akayam as no form. Oh, Krishna doesn't have form, Ishwar doesn't have a form, because this is what this verse says. But we need to understand Arthapati. Without Arthapati, it will be very hard for us to understand. Hare Krishna. Ajay ji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have a question, and it's been many times. I just realized this question come in my mind.
Please.
Maybe it's not relevant, or maybe it's very relevant. Why this like Shastras or even Bhagavad Gita, they're so complicated to understand as a normal people?
Yes.
Or we are not in that basically level to understand, or the previous in maybe thousands of years the people were in that state where they could understand. What's really problem here?
True. Ajay ji, you have given the answer very well, because there are two things. If you see, those days the intellect was very high, and it's very obvious, not that we are not so clever and smart, but the distractions are so many for us. If you remember our childhood, we didn't have smartphone, we didn't have computers. For a child to sit and study, there were less distractions outside, right? But these days, there was a time, cricket match, for example, test match used to be there, people will enjoy for 5 days. Now people can't even sit for IPLs, watching 2020. So the focus, the intelligence, the stability of the mind has reduced so much. And the psychologists, they have done the research recently, and they published that the span was 40 minutes. I remember when I was like 20 years back, when we got, and I think we got into the industry similar time, 22 years back, then the reports used to be that whenever you do, because we used to do the trainings, when we do the trainings, don't go more than 45 minutes, because the span goes, after that, you lose the audience. But these days, it says not more than 15-20 minutes. If you do a training, if you do a session, make it engaging. Otherwise, you will lose your audience. Audience cannot just sit back and relax and listen to you. Obviously, if they are not motivated, inspiring enough, they will just lose yourself, like what happens in school these days. So 20 minutes is the span. So it has reduced half from 20 years, 40 minutes, 20 minutes. Very similar thing 5,000 years back, when the Shastras were from Ved Vyasji, they were written when the Kali Yuga started. So there was no, the Vedas were there even before that, but they were verbal. So imagine what now, only 700 verses in Bhagavad Gita, we find it very hard to remember. But those days, the whole Puranas, and we know the evidences because we call it Dvivedi, Trivedi, Chaturvedi, right? So how, or we call it Upadhyay as well. So who were those people? Those were the people who could, so Dvivedi, those were the people who could remember 2 Vedas, just remember. We couldn't do it. That's one part of it. The second part is the context. The context is, and it always be, if you think, for example, our kids are in the schools. We have, they study maths, they study physics. And so I have 2 kids. Shivani is in year 5 and Aryan is in year 9. Now, Shivani has a bit of maths. When Aryan does it, Aryan explains a bit and Aryan goes a bit further. And Shivani says, hang on, I never learned this. And Aryan says, you will learn this later. He says, why later? And sometimes she argues, if this is important, why don't I learn it now? Why do I have to wait for year 9 to be considering it's the same topic? For example, division. In division, there are 5 different methods. Why don't you teach me all 5 in, like, why teachers don't teach all 5 in one go? Because it's gradual, based on the context. In year 3, you will learn so much, and maybe later you will get to the next level. And so sometimes when I started teaching Aryan initially, then I used to, my methods were a bit different. And then I will teach a bit more than required, because I don't know what's required at his level. And he will take on. And then a couple of years later, he came back and he said, I already knew that what teacher taught me now. Otherwise, I was thinking, I didn't know what you were thinking, whether it, and I didn't know either whether that will be in syllabus or not in the curriculum. So the similar thing is there, that the context is very different, especially when we go to Upanishads. So there is a Skanda Puran, and there, Skand is another name for Kartikeya, the son of Lord Shiva. And there is a Shiv Puran. And then there is a Vishnu Puran, there is a Brahma Puran. Now, few things about Lord Shiva are also there in Bhagavatam. So there is Rudra Gita, Canto 5, Chapter 4, sorry, Canto 4, Chapter 24 is called Rudra Gita. Now, Rudra is Lord Shiva. Now, Lord Shiva gave a lot of instructions to another devotees called Pracheta, but all that information is not there in Shiv Puran. So the instructions given by Shivji, not there in Shiv Puran, in the same form as is given in Bhagavatam. Why? Because the context was very different. Because here the context was that what are different kind of instructions given by different personalities. And then what Brahma said, what Indra said, many different sages says, and what Lord Shiva says. So that was the context. But then if somebody would like to know a lot more about Shivji, then Shiv Puran is there. Similar thing is there for Vishnu Puran and Brahma Puran. There are few things which are common, but there are few things. There is one particular example where half of the story is given. And when I read it, I was very thrilled. And I was very curious. And I thought, but why? So there was a lady who fell down. Well, we know the teacher of Danavs, demons, Shukracharya ji. Shukracharya's daughter, Devyani, I think. Devyani and Samishta, they were friends, and one of them fell down in the well. And then the story goes, she fell down and somebody came and somebody picked and she got married. Now I was thinking, how, and she fell down. When she fell down, she was naked. She was not wearing any dresses, nothing. And I was so curious, how come the daughter of Shukracharya falls down in a well without clothes? But that story only starts from that she fell down, she was there, and another king comes, another prince comes and got married to her. And then I'm thinking, how and why? But then when I read other Puranas, I found the reasons that she had a fight with, so Devyani and Samishta, they were friends. They were gone to take a shower in the river. When they came out, they, by mistakes, they wore each other clothes, and then they had a fight. Well, they started wearing each other's clothes. Then they had a fight, and the friends became enemies, and one girl pushed another one in the well and then left it there. And then there's a more story behind it. But these two stories are there in separate places. Only when we put them in the context, then we can understand the complete story. And I think it's quite understandable that not all the information could be given at one place, because it's a conversation. All our granth, they are conversations. And whenever the conversations happens, it happens based on the nature and the scope of the person who is asking. So if Shivani is asking maths, my answer will be different. If Aryan will ask, then my answer will be different. So based on who is asking, what's been asked, it's very different. And you're so right that I also thought the same. The question you asked, that why our scriptures are why they are not so direct, why there is a scope that people could misinterpret them. That's so right. Is that answer your question?
Yes, surely. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. But very, very valid point. Very valid point, that why it's like that. And it's not intentionally, but I guess it's because it's a conversation. And if we understand the context, and I also think that if you think about it, it's not only our scriptures, other scriptures, like scriptures for any other religions, if we pick without context, if we read them, they are also misunderstood or misinterpreted or interpreted differently. So for example, if we take Holy Quran, now I was discussing with another friend, and he said Quran is one, but there are hadiths, they are kind of purpose on Quran. And there are many things which we were discussing on something, and then I was saying, let me know where in Quran it says, because I would like to read the context of it. And he said it's actually not in Quran at all. I said, oh, not in Quran? I thought everything is Quran, what you kind of follow. And say it's actually in hadith. So hadith is given, and hadith, then he gave me a bit more context on it. Then I understood, all right, okay. Now I understood why different people interpret the same verse in Quran differently. Why some people could be very happy, very blissful, very compassionate, while other people could be very inimical. Why? Because they went into the hadith, or they went into a different interpretation of different followers. And then you can understand, oh, right, okay, yeah, that's the thing. So it's almost anything without context could be misunderstood. But that's the beauty of the sampradaya. That it's not like we just follow one person who just said, oh, I'm very spiritual and I'm going to make my own interpretation. We follow someone who has done, who is a part of the organization, like Srila Prabhupada ji. Srila Prabhupada ji never said that, well, actually, he said that it's nothing which I invented. I am just putting all the, or most of the scriptures together. So for Bhagavad Gita, for Bhagavatam, he interpreted, or he wrote, he compiled in English language. But they were there in Sanskrit from other acharyas. He actually gives the name of them. And we also see some of the names there, like his own guru, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakurji, and Gaur Kishore Babaji, then his guru, Bhakti Vinod Thakurji, and his guru, Gaur Jai Jagdish Babaji. So all these acharyas, they have given different purpose. And what Srila Prabhupada ji did, they were in different languages. They were in Sanskrit, they were in Bengali. So what he did, he understood them all and he compiled them together in one scripture. And now these are the scriptures we follow. And now Srila Prabhupada ji is not there in his material body. He's gone. His disciples are there. And they write many other stories, many other books, many other interpretations based on the same knowledge. They kind of expand and they make it very feasible and viable for the current environment. So I'm reading another book to Shivani these days. There are 50 stories, very small stories, and we at least read one story every night before she goes to bed. And at the end of the story, so all the story, or most of the stories are from scriptures. And at the end, there is a lesson learned in it, like the moral values we used to have it before. So these days, if anytime, I think when we read fictions, novels, we don't find any moral values. But these stories based on the scriptures, they always have the moral values, the lessons learned, and they're amazing. And if we keep, so this is a kind of, remember, I discussed the example of GPS. So global positioning system or guru positioning system. And guru could be not only a person, but the Shastras could be guru. And then if we keep reading Shastras, even one verse of Bhagavad Gita, that keeps us on track. We offset, we get diverted, we read the scripture, we come back. And the same thing for the kids. We keep telling kids, and kids will get jealous, envy, angry. And when we read these kind of stories, then they kind of come back on the GPS. Of course, they go to school, they meet many other different people, and not pure devotees. So they fall down again. They will develop these negative thinking, negative qualities. But then again, when we read the scriptures, they come back again. And this will keep happening. So we say, doesn't really matter how many times we fall down. If the number of times we get up is at least one time more, if it's one time more, then the number of times we get down, so go down. तो इसका फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि हम कितनी बार गिरते हैं, लेकिन अगर हम कितनी बार उठते हैं उसका नंबर एक बार भी ज्यादा है हमारे गिरने से, तो इसका मतलब हम एंड में उठे ही मिलेंगे. So the similar thing we try to do with the kids, similar thing we try to do with ourselves, and that's why we keep reading the scriptures. That's why we keep doing the different courses. So like I always advise, Bhaktivedanta Manna does a lot of short courses. Now, yesterday I received the email. We have a very dear Swamiji Maharaj, His Holiness Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Maharaj Ji, and he's doing a course from April 7 to April 10. I didn't check, but those days could be Easter holiday, Easter weekend. And if we have not booked anything, we can book in the temple with him. I don't know if there is any charge or if there is a charge, what is the charge? I don't know. But anyways, that charge is like a donation to the temple, because these people, there is no charge for them as such. So everything goes to the temple as the donation anyways. Sometimes they just suggest that this is a charge, whether you give it or not, it's up to you. But they suggest if you would like to. So when we do these kind of courses, when we go and stay in the temple for a day or two, this is another opportunity we have, not everywhere. I was there in Middle East, we didn't have this opportunity there. But here we have that opportunity that we can go and we can live in the temple, even for a day if we live. So one of the Friday night, we will go and live, or maybe Saturday morning we will go and we spend the whole day there. And if any one of you would like to, let me know. I will get you in touch with some of the devotees. They will engage in the temple services. And services could be offering food to others. Deity worship is not going to be, because for that you need to have another initiation, very purified. But making garland for the deities, and there are many other services available there in the temple, and maybe spend the whole, and not only you. So I have done it, lucky me, I have done it with the whole family. Me, my wife, we stayed in the temple in France for 3 days. Not nowhere else, just stayed in the temple for 3 days and try to have as much association. And kids, they still remember. I'm saying 5 years back. So Shivani is 10 and Shivani was 5 then, and she was making garlands for the deity, and she still remembers that. So these kind of things where we engage our kids, and not only that, kids, they get engaged with this other kids who are the children of other devotees, and then they make friendship with the devotees, and then you know how they stay on track. So it's a great thing to have association, which makes it clear wherever our scriptures, they appear as contradictions. A very nice question, Ajayji. Thank you so much. So this is that time. So we will go, and for a couple of weeks, I request everyone to stay in Krishna consciousness for next 2 weeks. Chant, read Bhagavad Gita, speak to your friends about Krishna, listen to a lot of on YouTube. We are always there. Listen to a lot of Krishna consciousness series, movies, lectures, and spread the word of Krishna, and you will feel blissful. And then we will come back on first Saturday of January, which is 2nd of January. So we will revise all, and then we will continue with 9. With that, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Then with pranams. Please take good care of yourself.
Thank you.
Look forward to see you perfect. All rejoice in New Year.
Hopefully should be at home at that time.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Then with pranams. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Nice time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gurudev Maharaj ki jai, jai jai Shri Radhe Shyam. Hare Krishna.